fans, welcome to Star Wars Doctrine, where we discuss everything about our favorite galaxy far, far away. I am a new channel, so if you enjoy this video, please like and subscribe to see more future Star Wars content. Also can be found on Instagram and Facebook at Star Wars Doctrine. In fact, be sure to follow because a lot of the stuff we talk about in these podcasts comes from Instagram and Facebook. A lot of the comments that you guys share is where I get a lot of the ideas for stuff to talk about, and I'll include a lot of the comments and discussions that you guys come up with in the podcasts because that's what this is all about, discussing our favorite galaxy far, far away together. And let's get into it and dive into the secrets of the Force. This week is week number 2 of the podcast, and I loved doing it last week. I got a lot of support from you guys and a lot of good feedback, a lot of personal messages from a lot of Star Wars pages, just mostly good things, and it just really gave me good feelings, knowing that you guys were enjoying it and right there with me enjoying talking about Star Wars. So definitely gives me the motivation to keep going. A lot of you that run your own pages know how important it is to get that good feedback and that good motivation and the support, how much it means, because this stuff does take a lot of work, and editing and sitting down and just doing the podcast, coming up with stuff, even just running the pages, it takes a lot of work, and I love it. Don't get me wrong. I love every second of it, and I love every minute I get to talk about Star Wars, but getting that extra little bit of support from you guys really just means the world. So I wanted to thank you for that. Hope that you'll enjoy this week as much as you did last week. Definitely have a lot of good things to talk about, and let's dive right into it. So let me look at our topics here. To start things off, Anthony Daniels wraps up filming Star Wars Episode 9. Got a lot of love on that post. A lot of you guys expressing how much you enjoy the character of C-3PO and Anthony Daniels' portrayal of him. He gave a pretty heartfelt message on Twitter. Let me go ahead and read that to you guys. Anthony Daniels says, "Today was 3PO's last on Episode 9. He's sad, so am I. But we're so proud to have worked with such a lovely, talented cast and crew led by JJ and Kathy. I'll miss everyone, but I'm glad to know that we've been making something exceptional together to share with the waiting world." Doesn't get much better than that. I mean, he seems very excited for what Episode 9 has in store, and he's sad to be finishing it up. Truthfully, as sad as it is to say, there is a very good chance that this could be Anthony Daniels' last time in the 3PO suit. If this really is wrapping up the Skywalker saga, we know he was built at the beginning of it, so unless they're planning on expanding past this, and obviously he's a droid, so he could probably live on forever, but unless they're planning on expanding further in the future past Episode 9, then we might not get anything more with him in it. And I mean, definitely getting older, as much as hate to say that. So it very well could be his last time. Maybe not, though. Maybe they'll explore stuff in between the movies like we saw with Rogue One, and maybe he'll get to reprise his role. Or even in cartoons, maybe we'll get to have him voicing stuff, because we know how much he loves being 3PO, and he hasn't seemed like one to turn down an opportunity to be C-3PO. I know he loves that role, so maybe we'll get something, maybe not. Either way, definitely a bittersweet moment. But I do like his enthusiasm for, what did he say? He said, "We've been making something exceptional together to share with the waiting world." That gives me a lot of excitement heading into Episode 9. So hopefully all good things there for sure. All right, next thing we talked about this week on social media was Holocrons. So Holocrons, if you don't know, are something that's been in Star Wars for a long time, since the Old Republic. Possibly even before that. Holocrons were information storage devices used by both the Jedi and the Sith that contained ancient lessons or valuable information in holographic form, and they could only be accessed with the Force. So you may have seen these if you've watched Rebels, Clone Wars. They make an appearance. I believe Cad Bane, the bounty hunter, is actually trying to steal one in one episode from the Jedi archives. There's I believe in episode 2 as well, you see him when Obi-Wan is in the library, the archives, looking for the planet of Kamino. I think there's some in the background. So we get a lot of small introduction to them in the movies, but we've never really had a full focus on what they are, what they do, or seen much of anyone using one. I think the closest we've come is in Star Wars Rebels. We get to see Maul and Ezra Bridger use one, a Sith one and a Jedi one together, which I'll talk about in a second. The Holocrons are really cool. They've been something that I've always been interested in. They are always making appearances in the movie visual guides because they're always just kind of in the background there. And for how important they are in Star Wars, I think it would be so cool if somehow they could be implemented into the movies. I'm really hopeful for episode 9, honestly. And that's one thing that really got me thinking about Holocrons this week with some of the posts was the possibility that they could be in episode 9. And we know that J.J. Abrams has said multiple times that he really wants to implement stuff from the prequel trilogy, from the original trilogy and the sequels all into this movie of episode 9 to really tie everything together, which is awesome. It's a great idea. We need it to feel like it's all one big story, because that's one of the coolest things about Star Wars is how they all are connected. So wrapping it up with episode 9, he's got a big job. And I think one way, it's just my take, one way that he could do this would be through the use of holocrons. Let me tell you why. First off, holocrons are really big forms of what Jedis and Sith would use for training. For training purposes, they would look at these holocrons, which they could open up with the Force, which would have secrets of the Force inside of them that old Jedi and Sith masters had put into these Force-sensitive holocrons. And you could learn from old masters that had passed on. And I think that one thing we can all agree on from The Last Jedi is that Rey definitely needs some more training. That was one of the main complaints I see across the board, that people wanted to see her learning more about the Force before she becomes so powerful. And I'm pretty sure that JJ is aware of how us fans feel about it. So I am thinking that he will do what he can to make her receive the training she needs. How cool would it be to see her open a holocron and learn something from Obi-Wan? Or, let's get Ewan McGregor back on stage. That would be so cool. Or open a holocron of Anakin's or Master Yoda, or even if we could be introduced to a Jedi from the Old Republic that we don't know about, or that was in the expanded universe, and see one of their holocrons. On the opposite side of that, I would love to see Kylo Ren's training become even more in-depth as well. I think he's still got a ways to go, although he's much farther along than Rey. He killed his master, which was a big step in his dark side turn, I think. But he still has more to learn, and I think if he had some holocrons to learn from, that would be so cool. Think about all the Sith that he could learn from. Maybe he finds a Vader holocron. We know how much he loves Vader. Or how cool would it be if he has a Darth Sidious, Chancellor Palpatine holocron, and we could get Ian back on the screen and see Sidious on the screen. How cool would that be? Really tie in the prequels if we got to see him learning from Palpatine, and obviously the original trilogy as well. Learn some secrets of the dark side, dive into that a little bit. That would make the movie so awesome for me. I know a lot of people want Old Republic stuff implemented. People love Darth Revan. Maybe we could see something where there's a holocron of his. We know that Luke was obsessed with artifacts of the Jedi, and supposedly Kylo is as well. Maybe that, there's something there where he's been collecting Sith artifacts like Luke was collecting Jedi artifacts. There's so much possibilities there. And I think that would be one thing that would really be cool to see in the movies, not to mention the fact that we haven't seen these parts of canon that are referenced so much. We just haven't seen them in action in a live movie. And I think that would be something that would be really exciting for fans. I know I'd enjoy it, and just to see them, how they work, and to see that brought to life would be something new and exciting, but familiar at the same time, that I think would resonate well with fans. It'd be a little bit of a fan service, but also something new. And I think that's one thing that this sequel trilogy needs. So just a thought on that. We talked a little bit about Holocron fusion, which is what you see in Star Wars Rebels if you're a fan. So Holocron fusion is the merger of a Jedi and a Sith holocron. And if you perform this fusion of the holocrons, you could ask the holocron, which is a Force-sensitive object, any question that you wanted, and it would guide you to the answer. So doing this required a dark sider and a light sider to work together. And because of that, it was a really rare occurrence. And actually in canon, it talks a little bit about how this was something that was done a lot, maybe and a lot more in the older Republic. But because it happened so rarely, obviously Jedi and Sith didn't get along. Because it happened so rarely, knowledge of this practice was kind of forgotten about. And most of the Jedi and Sith in the future, back like to the current times, I should say, didn't even know it was a thing. So how Darth Maul discovers it in Rebels, we don't know, but he did, and it was a big secret that he was able to discover it. So he gets Ezra Bridger to do it with him because they're both seeking knowledge. Ezra's trying to learn how he can defeat Darth Vader, and Darth Maul is actually trying to find out if Obi-Wan's alive so that he can seek his revenge. Ultimately, Maul finds out Obi-Wan is alive. That's when he goes to Tatooine in Rebels and eventually meets his death by Obi-Wan's saber, which, by the way, was a beautiful scene, really well done. Very cool that although they made Maul survive, Obi-Wan was still able to be the one to kill him in the end, which is just really cool. And to get him back on screen was really cool and well done. But one thing that I want to talk about that really does interest me is the real possibility that something like a holocron fusion could happen in Episode 9. Obviously, I really want holocrons to appear in Episode 9, but the truth is, light side users and dark side users, like we talked about, is pretty rare for them to work together. But between Rey and Kylo, we've seen them work together. In Episode 8, they worked together a lot. They had that entire fight scene where they killed the Snoke's Praetorian Guards together, and they have that Force connection that was supposedly put there by Snoke. I think that they probably have more interaction between a light and dark side user than we've really had in the past, and so if it's going to happen in a movie, I think this would be the time. Whether they actually do that or not, I don't know that it's something they would do. Definitely a possibility, though. I think Rey is still searching for knowledge about her parents, and if she somehow comes across the fact that she can learn more about them by doing this holocron fusion and asking these questions, it might be something she's interested in. Kylo could have a million questions, about Vader or about, how to become more powerful. Whatever he's interested in, we'll have to see. But I could definitely see it being something that intrigues them. Maybe they're both just trying to learn more about the Force. One thing I will say is I don't think we've seen the last of Kylo and Rey working together. Episode 8 brought us a lot of that, but just because they kind of went their separate ways and Rey chose not to join Kylo, I don't think that means we're done seeing them work together. I'm not saying that necessarily means one's joining the dark or light side. Whether they just get stuck working together. I mean, obviously we're going to have some fight scenes between them. That's fairly obvious. But I don't think that's the only scenes we're going to have. I do think that in some way, shape, or form, they'll probably end up working together because I think fans liked that. Whether you're pro Reylo, like you want them to be together, or not. I'm not saying I'm sure one way or the other, but I think that there'll at least be some form of them teaming up. Whether it's permanent or just temporary, it's definitely something I could see. So, the holocron fusion, it's definitely something that we could see. And I think it'd be cool, something cool to see live action on the screen. But, as long as Holocrons make it into the movie, I'm not going to be too picky. I just think that'd be cool to see in general. Interesting enough, though, we got quite a bit of comments on actually Reddit and a decent amount of bad feedback on this Holocron fusion, and people talking about how they thought it was a little weak. These Holocrons, typically what we've known about them is that they have been objects you put stuff into. So the Jedis would put their trainings and things that they felt were important into these Holocrons, and that's what you could get out of them. So them being able to answer a question, a lot of people that wasn't programmed in them, I guess you could say, didn't sit well with a lot of you guys. And I thought that was interesting because I actually personally never thought of that. When I watched it in Rebels, it didn't cross my mind that, oh yeah, that's kind of weird. But I can totally see where you guys are coming from. A lot of you that commented that, it just hadn't crossed my mind. But yeah, the more I think about it, the more I see where you're coming from, because these really have been training devices. But I will say this. We do know that they're Force-sensitive objects, and the way I could look at it with accepting what's canon is that because Holocrons are Force-sensitive objects, maybe the Force can move through them to give you answers to questions that weren't physically put into the Holocrons themselves. Granted, this is a very rare occurrence anyways when you have a Sith one and a Jedi one combined, so maybe the dark side, light side of the Force working together like that can create powers that just are unnatural. I mean, we know Palpatine said, the dark side is a pathway to many abilities that some consider to be unnatural. So maybe that's a possibility as to why. It definitely changed canon a little bit. We didn't know that was something that could happen until Rebels. And I know that a lot of times when things are changed or added to canon, it doesn't sit well with people. But one thing I will say is that for Star Wars to grow, you have to accept that sometimes things are going to change. And there's definitely been things that I haven't loved that have changed, or things that I liked about the expanded universe that aren't in canon anymore that I miss. Things that are canon that I wish weren't. But at the end of the day, the fact that there is new canon is exciting, because it means Star Wars can keep moving forward. And as much as I love the expanded universe, we cannot pretend that it was perfect. I mean, there was some absolutely crazy, bonkers stuff that was going on in the expanded universe that, say what you will, it was not perfect. I mean, Palpatine came back to life how many times in the expanded universe? And there was a lot of things that were starting to contradict each other. So having some sort of canon is nice, in my opinion. And I think that it's necessary for Star Wars to be able to grow. Doesn't mean you have to agree with me. Like I said, I love the expanded universe. I hope that Disney will continue to take things from it and make it canon. And especially the things that fans like the most. I said in my last podcast, I'm hoping that this movie will somehow make Mara Jade canon, and I really hope that through Holocrons we can get some Old Republic Sith to become canon again, because right now there's really not a whole lot of Sith that are canon from the Old Republic, so that would be a really cool way of doing it. But yeah, just my thought. Disney does have its faults, absolutely, but at the end of the day, Star Wars is still growing because they took over and they're creating a canon. And I know there's going to be things we don't like, but there's also some really cool things. And, you got to take it for what it's worth. At least we have Star Wars. At least we have new stuff coming out. At least there's hope, right? Disney's kind of like a new hope. We have something to look forward to, hopefully, assuming they can get this movie right, which I want to place my faith in JJ and hope that they can. All right, so moving on, speaking of episode 9, obviously at the Super Bowl we didn't get any teasers, which we kind of expected after that rumor was kind of shot down by Disney saying that those talks fell through, and that more than likely people are now speculating that we probably aren't going to get any trailers or teasers until Star Wars Celebration, which takes place in Chicago this year. It's April 11th through the 15th, so mark your calendars because we were probably going to be getting a lot of good Star Wars news around then. If I had to guess, I'm thinking we're going to get our first Episode 9 trailer. Whether we get to hear the title before that, I don't know. I am hopeful because I'm just dying to know what the name of the next Star Wars is going to be so I can start speculating more and just dreaming about what it could mean. I also think Star Wars Celebration, most people believe it's going to give us a Mandalorian trailer, which I am incredibly pumped about. The Mandalorian is going to explore a really cool time period, so I'm really excited for that. Hoping that we'll get some more the Clone Wars saved information, maybe a little bit more teaser trailer for that, or maybe a specific date on when we're going to actually get that. Something like that would be nice. Maybe, I know we got Cassian Andor's standalone, his TV series that's going to be on the Disney Plus. We might get to hear more about that. So there's a lot of potential for this Star Wars Celebration. So I'm looking forward to that. April 11th just feels so far away. I don't know about you guys, but I am starving for something. So hopefully we'll get a title reveal before then. Well, that's going to wrap it up for this week, guys. Be sure to let me know if you have any questions in the comments. I'd love to hear what you guys think on this Holocron stuff, maybe the potential of it being in Episode 9, if that's something you guys would like to see. If so, who's Holocron and so on. Dying to hear your guys' theories. So, like I said, be sure to comment and let me know. Also, check out Instagram and Facebook so you can take part in discussions that'll be on next week's podcast. And thank you guys so much for listening. Hope you guys have a great week, and may the Force be with you. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
It is your destiny.